Alrighty, welcome. Namaste, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. It's nice to have everybody here and introduce you into the art of Ayurveda. So today, I'm going to, I guess the goal is to introduce Ayurvedic concepts in an easy to understand way so that you can apply them to create more balance, connection, health, and wellness in your life. And I've asked a few of you as you were joining in if you've had much to do with Ayurveda. So I'm interested to know if you want to pop your hand up, if you have had any experience with Ayurveda or studied Ayurveda at all. We got seasoned Ayurvedic yet? Lorraine has, got a few people. Awesome. Well, I'm sure if you haven't, you probably actually have, but you're just not aware of it. So I'm interested to know more. Jen says, yay. Awesome. Well, you're going to learn a lot more today. All right, so just a quick overview of what we'll cover in the masterclass today. We'll be talking obviously about what Ayurveda is, and we'll also be talking about what Ayurveda is not, because I've heard a lot of myths over my time. We will then head into some Ayurvedic psychology, the 5 elements, the doshas, which you may be familiar with, Ayurvedic Dinacharya and lifestyle medicine. We'll talk about Ayurvedic nutrition, and then a final note and an invitation to become an Ayurveda alchemist so you can also teach Ayurveda. Just a bit of housekeeping, just please keep your mic on mute unless you're asking a question. You can raise your vertical hand or jump in if it's appropriate to do so, but we will have some time for Q&A at the very end. And also please feel free to share any of your insights from today on social media and tag us or take some screenshots, whatever is good for you. Actually, Noreen, my assistant, could you please take some screenshots as well so we can share? Yeah, so that's sort of how the masterclass is going to run today. So for everyone I haven't met, my name is Harmony and I'm an Ayurveda and integrative health practitioner. I specialize in women's hormonal health, gut health and burnout. I've had more than 16 years experience in the health and wellness space and have helped hundreds of women throughout that time. I'm also a registered nurse and health educator at one of Australia's leading health retreats. I'm also a podcast host, a course facilitator, and a business mentor. I'm a mum to twin boys, Xavier and Cruz. They're 9 years old, almost 10, and wife to my lovely husband, Phil. I am definitely, it says slightly chai tea obsessed on the slides. I'm actually definitely chai tea obsessed, an outdoor adventurer and a yogi at heart. But before we get started into the actual content, I just wanted to share a bit about my story and how Ayurveda helped me. So for years, I suffered from IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, anxiety, and a hormonal imbalance, whilst running multiple businesses, working as a nurse, teaching yoga classes all over town and caring for my twin sons. I was really overwhelmed and my body was overrun. The most frustrating part was that no matter how many doctors and specialists that I consulted, I wasn't making any headway with my health issues, or very minimal. That was when I then knew that there had to be sort of a different way, and I turned to the principles of Ayurveda and integrative health. I'd already done some study in Ayurveda and had learnt about it and had used these principles before, but you know, life happens and you go off track. So I went back down my Ayurvedic roots and really helped myself achieve more balance in my life and minimize my health-related symptoms. And since then, I've invested thousands of dollars and hours into learning about women's health. And as I said, I now specialize in women's health. And my motivation has been to share this method of health with women like yourself and like myself, women who need answers but aren't always finding them through the traditional healthcare system alone. So what is Ayurveda? I know it's a really long, bizarre word and so many people have trouble saying it. I had a lot of trouble pronouncing it when I was first learning about Ayurveda. But when we break the word down, the first part of the word Aya, so the A-Y-U-R, in the Sanskrit language, it translates to life or longevity. And then Veda is the science or the knowledge or the study of. So basically the word Ayurveda can be translated to the science of life and longevity. Where did Ayurveda come from? Ayurveda originated in India over 5,000 years ago. It's one of the world's oldest holistic and integrated health systems. And it was documented, the documentation of Ayurveda was first discovered in the ancient text, the Vedas. So obviously back then they didn't have paper and printing. The Vedas were actually documented and written down on palm leaves. So we've come a long way since the first textbook. It is said though that Ayurveda is actually much older than 5,000 years ago, because it was actually handed down through the oral route before they were ever documented on those palm leaves. The elders of the community would share their wisdom with the younger generation, who would carry their healing secrets onto the next generation and then to the next. So the principles and roots of Ayurveda can date back far beyond 5,000 years ago. It was just that the first documented book was 5,000 years ago. Ayurveda really draws its insights from nature and life itself. When we align ourselves with nature's natural rhythms and live in harmony with nature, we live in a more balanced way. Every part of our life, whether that be our relationships, the work we do, our environment that we're in, the people we hang out with, or the food that we eat, either has a positive or a negative impact on our health. And Ayurveda is really about cultivating an awareness of this so that we can make changes where need be. So it understands that the mind, body, and spirit work in unison to cultivate that optimal health. It is a science combining the knowledge of science, the law of nature, the human body, psychology, spirituality, and philosophy. It empowers you to trust in your own body's intelligence and identify the signs of illness and disease in the mind and the body before it manifests. It's a preventative and treatment medicine. And although Ayurveda is one of the oldest forms of medicine known to man, its popularity is certainly growing in the West. Ayurveda has also evolved in this modern time, but it still is true to its roots and philosophy, which is really important. As Ayurveda did evolve, physicians identified and categorized 8 branches of Ayurveda. So we just think of it as the doshas and preventative medicine, but Ayurveda actually goes into toxicology, aphrodisiac therapy, internal medicine, surgery, psychiatry. ENT was a big branch of Ayurveda, pediatrics and geriatrics. In the West, however, Ayurveda is most well known for its philosophy, natural medicine approach and lifestyle, which is what we will be touching more of today. So the primary objective of Ayurveda is to bring balance to the body, the mind, and the spirit. Science is now backing the Ayurvedic philosophy of living in accordance with our natural circadian rhythm. A circadian rhythm is a natural internal process that regulates the sleep-wake cycle and repeats roughly every 24 hours. So it's our biorhythm, our natural body clock. Those who go against this natural clock often have a lot of health disorders that have been exacerbated and or caused by living in this way. So as I said, I'm also a registered nurse, and nurses are beautiful, amazing humans, but unfortunately they work really crappy hours and it's really hard on their mind and body. And a lot of nurses are some of the most unhealthy people out there because of even though they have that beautiful caring nature and do all the stuff they do, their work has really played a toll on their health. Also, modern day life can cause distraction from living in this way as well. We're just constantly drawn out to external stimuli. We're constantly being stimulated by the TV, by our inbox, by phones. So we've really sort of disconnected ourselves from nature and living in that way when we're actually part of nature, and we really need to get back to the root of that. We need to really be aware of this so that we can make some changes. So living in accordance to the circadian rhythm helps to minimize stress on the mind and body, because when we're out of that circadian rhythm, it creates a cascade of hormonal imbalance. And that's what I see a lot of in my clinic. It also, when we can align ourselves with nature and the circadian rhythm, it aids in proper digestion and metabolism, weight management, and disease prevention as well. So if you've ever had a consultation with an Ayurvedic practitioner, they will offer a lot of lifestyle advice, body therapies, dietary advice, maybe even some yoga meditation if they're also trained in that, pranayama, breath work to restore your mind-body balance, and herbal medicine. So herbal medicine is a big part of Ayurvedic medicine as well. But there's also kitchen herbs and spices that have great therapeutic effects and aid in healing and or restoring balance. So you can use those in your own practice at home. So now we've sort of covered what Ayurveda is. I really want to talk about what Ayurveda is not, because over my years, I have heard a lot of myths about Ayurveda. So although one of them is that people think, well, it's really a complicated science. It's too hard to learn. It's too far out of my comfort zone. So I'd like to say that whilst Ayurveda is a profound and complex subject, it draws its insight from nature, which we are part of. So when you start to tap into that, you can understand that it can't be hard and complex to learn because we are part of nature. We are already part of Ayurveda and what it has to offer. Another one that I've heard, another myth, is that Ayurveda is just all about lentils and spices, and that you have to like lentils and Indian spices to practice Ayurveda. No, Ayurveda is not all about lentils and Indian spices. So although they can play a minor role, they do not define Ayurveda and what it has to offer. Ayurvedic nutrition teaches you how to master proper digestion for good health, not just digestion of lentils and spices. An Ayurvedic saying is that one man's medicine can be one man's poison when it comes to nutrition. Ayurveda always considers the individual and suggests nutrition and treatments depending on that person's unique mind-body type, which is the dosha. So we will be learning about those later. Which then leads me to another myth, that Ayurveda is just about the doshas. And I know this is really appealing when you first start to learn about Ayurveda. You just want to know what your dosha is, because we all love to know about ourselves and learn about ourselves, and it is great for that. But they do play a really important role in Ayurvedic medicine, but they do not define the essence of Ayurveda. And when I teach my Ayurveda Alchemist program, I always emphasize the actual elements, because the Ayurvedic elements is what creates the dosha. When you can learn the elements, Ayurveda becomes very, very easy. The doshas can complicate things a little, and people become too identified with their dosha.
And I, not a 0.
Sorry, we've just got a mic on, if you don't mind closing the mic down.
That's coming. Yes or no to all of those?
Hello. Can we just turn all of our mics off, please?
Test covered, no.
So the doshas are our unique mind-body constitution, and they help us determine when we're out of balance and what we need to do to rebalance our mind and body. And like I said, we all have all 3 of the doshas within us, and a common thing I see is people getting really attached to their dosha, so then they don't look out of the box when something is going on in their lives, which we'll get to in the dosha component. The other myth I've heard is that Ayurveda is a type of religion. Ayurveda is a holistic health science. It is the sister science of yoga and stems from ancient India. Ayurveda is the path to holistic health and balance of the mind and body, whilst yoga is the spiritual path to moksha, which is enlightenment. If you choose to incorporate the two, it is said that you will reach that ultimate liberation. But Ayurveda is not a religion and respects everyone's religious views. So whether you're a practicing Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Jewish, or any other religion, you can still practice Ayurveda. The foundation of Ayurveda is Sankhya philosophy. So it's a philosophical science, not a religion. And then the other concept or myth is that you have to live like an Ayurvedic sage and become a vegetarian. No, you don't, okay? Ayurveda is for everyone. Ayurveda believes in balance, and even the ancient texts, the Vedas, which are the first documented textbooks of Ayurveda, left the back pages blank. Why? because the ancient sages knew that there would be a new modern world, emerging science. Now, this isn't to discount the ancient wisdom Ayurveda has, like we always stay true to the roots of Ayurveda, but it knew that new emerging practitioners, Ayurvedic coaches, and science would be part of, our life, and we have to adapt to that as well. So I love this quote, which says, "A healthy person smiles and laughs, is cheerful and happy. Health is a gift from Mother Nature, the power behind life. Health is your birthright, not disease. It is natural to be well as it is to be born." This quote is from the great Swami Shivananda, who was a spiritual teacher, a yogi, and a Vedic medical physician. So please note that it doesn't say health says that a healthy person has to have a six-pack, look divine, and just eat salads. As we understand Ayurveda, we come to know that as the mind, senses, and soul are happy, one will be less likely to make choices that lead towards ill health. Yes, can I mute who is the, please mute, thank you. Can I just see, there's somebody with the microphone on. Who is that? Just trying to find where I can mute them. Zoom user, mute. Okay, Zoom user, we've muted you. All right, that's better, thank you. Alrighty, so disease is simply a chronic state of imbalance. So now let's discover how to create balance through Ayurveda. First of all, we're going to look at Ayurvedic psychology, because I really feel that this plays a huge role in Ayurveda, especially now in our modern day times when we're faced with a lot of stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. Ayurvedic psychology specifically addresses the health and imbalances of the mind, and it sees that the mind, body, spirit are intimately connected. Thus, every thought makes an impression on our subtle and physical body. Ayurveda cultivates an awareness and gives us knowledge and clarity to make better choices. This is true for our thought patterns and our beliefs too. As I mentioned before, Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga. So yoga is actually the spiritual practice with the goal of enlightenment and moksha. It might not look that way in the West, because often we are drawn to yoga classes for the physical component of it, the stretching, the fitness, or whatever it is. But those people who continue that practice, they usually head down that more spiritual route of it in the end anyway. Ayurveda is the science of life, health, and longevity with the goal of living the right way, so a dharmic life. Yoga and Ayurveda both come from the same philosophy and share a holistic perspective that we are spiritual beings living a human existence, and our body, mind, and consciousness are unified. According to the classic Ayurvedic texts, there are actually 4 goals of life. And when we can reach all of these 4 goals, we do reach that ultimate liberation, or we can live in a more balanced and healthy and happy way. So the first goal of life, according to the Ayurvedic text, is Dharma. So Dharma is following the right way to promote inner and outer health. In living your Dharma simply refers to living a truthful existence in accordance with one's nature and acting for the good of all. So a lot of us have heard the concept of Dharma, like follow your Dharma, meaning that what is your purpose? It's also important to note that our purpose can change in different aspects and times in our life. Like when you are a new mum, your Dharma is to provide care for that child. So you are living your Dharma when you're doing that in the right way. And your Dharma, if you do choose to become a nurse and you feel that that is your Dharma, that is your purpose in life, when you're in the mode of being, in that working phase of your life, then that is your Dharma. Whether it's being an Ayurvedic practitioner, as long as you're doing those things in the right way and promoting that inner and outer health and living simply and in a truthful existence, that is following your Dharma. But we often make it so much more complicated and think that, we're not good enough, if we can't be living, doing this career that is dharmic and full of purpose, there may be other aspects of your life that mean you are already living your dharma. It might be your family, it might be the connections with your friends, it might be what you do outside of your work. The second one is moksha, and that is enlightenment, which we aim to, our goal is to reach this moksha and this enlightenment. That's why we're always doing this personal growth in these spiritual practices. This is realizing your true nature and breaking free of the notion that you are identified with just the mind and the body. Moksha is knowing your true essence at all times, which goes far beyond the concepts of mind and body. The third one is karma, so not karma with an R in it, karma, which is sensory pleasure. And it's to say that when we overindulge in the senses, this can lead to addiction, imbalances in health, and frustration. And we've seen this in our modern times. We're so addicted to the phone, to the Instagram scroll. It has been shown in many studies to provide that endorphin and balance, and give us those hits, those sensory hits. And what I like to educate a lot of my clients and students on is that we really need to go back to self and practice pratyahara, which is actually, pratyahara means to withdraw from the senses. We are constantly being pulled outside of our body. We're constantly being, having stimulated visuals of the TV, of the computer screen. We're constantly getting contacted by email. If they don't reach us by email, they'll be calling us, they'll be texting us, they'll be sending us messages through Facebook. We're constantly on this sensory overload, and that is what's creating a lot of stress and overwhelm in the world and creating this imbalance with our stress and sex hormones. So when we can practice pratyahara, we're really withdrawing from those external senses and drawing the sense back internal into ourself, tapping into our own innate body's wisdoms and our truth of who we really are. So learning that moderation is the key, and that sensory pleasures are also to be enjoyed, but not crossed into the addiction of these pleasures. And then the fourth goal of life is artha, which is material wealth. So we often feel a bit icky when we talk about money and material wealth, but the ancient sages, so the ones that were sharing all the Ayurvedic philosophy and the healers back in the day, they were extremely rich in those terms. There wasn't money. Money has become a thing that we exchange for services or material things. But back in those days, those sages were given houses, were given a lot of food, accommodation, all of the things. So to outsiders, they were seen as very rich individuals, and they knew that material wealth was important. So wealth and abundance can be beautiful things if obtained without harm to others or self. Abundance is welcomed, and as it can be shared with others. So the more abundant you are, the more abundantly you can share with others. And just a quote out of the Bhagavad Gita is, "For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain his greatest enemy." And that's why it's so important to know the basics of Ayurvedic psychology. So let's dive a little deeper into Ayurvedic psychology versus Western psychology. Western psychology treats the mind as isolated from the body, whereas Ayurveda looks at the mind-body as one and offers a holistic approach to treating mental health, with the goal being to create balance, clarity, and harmony in both mind and body as they're interrelated. The mind becomes a tool we can use on our journey to good health and enlightenment. But both Western and Ayurvedic psychology have their place, and they can complement each other. The word psychology actually comes from the Greek term psyche, which means soul, and logo, which means study, so the study of the soul. However, unfortunately, it's really lost its meaning along the way, and now psychology has become more of a medical science and the study of the function and structure of the mind as an isolated concept rather than an integrated philosophy. So, as I mentioned, Ayurveda looks at the mind, body, spirit in a complex way in unison, and how it engages senses and perceptions on a daily basis, and how it responds to its environment and other influences. So in Ayurvedic psychology, we know that our environment, the food we eat, the people we hang out with, the job we do, they're all going to influence our mind. Our mental state is directly related to various factors, and we really need to know that, so that we can come from this place of understanding. We can see what is balanced and what is not balanced. We also need to understand that we are not just the mind as an isolated concept. We are the essence of all that is it, that is. And so we want to act, live, and observe from a place of non-judgment, love, and compassion. So a big concept of Ayurvedic psychology is the 3 states of the mind. So the three Maha Gunas. So Maha, it means the 3 great qualities is what the 3 Maha Gunas means. The Maha Gunas play a vital role in Ayurvedic psychology and understanding our own mental state and where we're at in any moment. Each of these qualities will show itself to us at different stages of our lives. And so understanding our mental constitution will really allow us to recognize what course of action we need to take to bring us more into a sattvic state. So what is a sattvic state? Oh, sorry, are we not on the right? Okay, we're on the right slides. Yes. So we can see the 3 states of mind. Yeah, awesome. Okay. Just trying to read the comments as well. So what is a sattvic state? It's a state of purity, goodness, balance, and love. It's a rajasic state of mind is when you feel like you can feel motivated and you have passion and drive. So it's really good when you're in that mode of any sort of transformation or work. And then a tamasic state, the 3rd state of the mind, is the mode of ignorance, anxiety, fear. It's when you can feel really heavy, lethargic, you can feel really run down or even anxious. And so once we can establish what state of mind we're in, then we can try to change that state if we need to. So how do we change the states of mind? It's either by adding or removing the opposite qualities. So Ayurveda has a very simple rule of like increases like and opposites balance out each other. So if you add more of what you want and less of what you don't want, then you will get into a more sattvic state of mind. So if you want more sattva, so more purity, more goodness, more balance and love, then you have to chase those things. You can't, be in this state of ignorance and feeling low and these negative self-thoughts if you want to be in that higher state of being. Like that seems very obvious, but sometimes we actually really need to sit and think about that for a minute. If we want more, drive, if we want more fire and we need more passion, we'll go find something that brings you joy. Go find something that excites you. Just make those little switches up in your life. But if you are, I guess, creating or not creating, but being part of more dramas or delusion or toxicity, engaging in all the toxic things on social media, then you're only going to bring in more of that tamasic state of mind. Now, it's also important to note in Ayurveda that these qualities can be found in the actions we do, the thoughts that we have, and the environment that we're in, but also even the food that we eat. So everything can impact our state of mind. If you're already feeling in a low mood, say because the dark, gloomy weather that they've had lately, and then we decide to have lunch and we go and eat tamasic food, which would be unhealthy, thick, heavy food, and then we have a fight with our boyfriend or something like that, we're likely to stay in that tamasic period for a much longer period of time. So what we need to do is we need to bring in opposite qualities of lightness, of love, and that might not be easy to start with. So instead of trying to jump from a tamasic state of mind, like feeling low, straight to sattva, oh, love, peace, and happiness, which may not happen straight away, we know that, then often it's advised to just try to step up one. So that would be rajasic. Go for a walk, get some movement, do some activity, try to find some joy in something. And that can just shift that concept or the way that you're feeling in your mind in that moment. And then from there, we can lift it even higher. But it's just important to be aware of where you're at. The 3 Mahagunas are used to describe the state of mind and emotions, as we've discussed, and they are often seen in this way, but they're not just limited to the state of mind. So, for example, we can use the 3 Mahagunas to explain anything in the world. So a log, right? If we're thinking of a big, fat, heavy log, that would be tamasic in nature due to its inactivity and stability. Yet we would also describe a depressed emotional state as tamasic due to its dull emotions or inertia. Stale or rotten food is a tamasic in nature, but a fire could be seen as rajasic in nature with its mobility, its activity, and its energy. Yet someone who is very driven to work and succeed and shows a lot of passion for their job is also seen as rajasic in nature. Spicy and salty food is rajasic, and a sattvic life is one of balance, eating sattvic healthy foods that are fresh and promote good health and clarity. Engaging in sattvic thoughts and emotions such as happiness and joy. So things like meditation help increase sattva into our life, as does any activity really that brings you joy and does not harm another person, animal, or living thing in the process. So in Ayurveda, we also say that these qualities, they're never seen as either just good or bad. They just are what they are. You know, we often then in the West, we try to label everything and we have to see tamas as being really bad. But it also has a purpose, because the nighttime, the darkness, that is tamas. And we need that tamasic state for there to be lightness. So it's not bad nor good. It just is what it is. And we need to find the right balance of all of these things. So I hope I haven't confused you all too much yet. It does seem complex to start with, but when you start to really hear these Ayurvedic, I guess, principles more and more, they begin to make really amazing sense. And that's where you really draw the insights and can create balance for yourself. So now we've looked at the 3 Mahagunas, the state of the mind, but also know that they can be seen in all that exists. We're going to look at the 5 element theory. This is the most basic principle taught in Ayurveda. And we're going to look at it how these 5 elements are related to the doshas and also the Mahagunas. So the 5 elements are ether, which comes from sattva, air comes from sattva and rajas, and fire comes from rajas, and water comes from rajas and tamas. So Ayurvedic physicians adopted the physics of the 5 elements and suggest that these elements are present in our mind, our body, our food, environment, emotions, relationships, everything that exists in nature and the universe. The 5 elements are known as Pancha Mahabhutas in the Sanskrit language. Just seeing if they're... So Pancha means 5, Maha means great, and Bhutas means elements. So the 5 great elements. It's also really important to note that the English term for the elements, they can't be taken literally. Rather, they represent a collection of gunas or qualities and forces that describe each element. So when we talk about fire, we're not literally talking about a fire. We're talking about what that element represents, like heat, transformation, those kind of things. So when we look at the 5 elements, they are represented by these 10 opposing qualities or gunas. So the word guna means quality. To balance the elements within ourselves, we adapt the Ayurvedic rule of like attracts like and opposites decrease each other. So in other words, the qualities of the elements have the capability to balance or aggravate each other. For instance, we know that fire will increase fire, whereas cold and liquid quality of water balances the hot and dry qualities of fire. Air increases air, whereas heavy and slow qualities of earth balances the light and mobile qualities of air. And you might be thinking, because these are new concepts, what does all this mean? But when we're talking about air, which we'll get into later, we're talking about gas and bloating in the body. So any sort of air, right? So this is how it'll apply to you as a person and your emotions and your thoughts. So just for an example, if you're feeling really hot, you're frustrated and you have a fiery temper, so you're a little bit of a pitta type person, but you're sitting in the sun and you start to eat spicy hot food like jalapenos, which have the same qualities, so they all have the qualities of heat and fire, you will only increase that fire element within you, because like attracts like. You may find yourself more frustrated, so you're hot and you're just getting more frustrated and pissed off with the world. You get hot-headed, so you might get more angry, or some sort of inflammatory response such as itchy hot skin might happen because we've just added so much of the heat element. To counterbalance this, you would need more cooling qualities to soothe that heat. So opting for the cooling type of foods, get out of the sun, get into the shade. Now this all might seem like common sense, and yes, Ayurveda really is common sense, but we have forgotten this. We have forgotten these parts of nature that we are part of. So the 10 qualities, heavy, the opposing qualities are heavy, the opposite is light, cold and hot, dry and oily, dull, sharp, rough and smooth, dense and liquid, hard and soft, static, mobile, gross, subtle, sticky, and clear. So let's have a look at some practical examples of applying the gunas to everyday things, right? We could describe a log, as I mentioned before, as heavy, dry, dense, hard, and gross. These are the gunas of the earth element and the mode of tamas. Emotions can also be described in terms of the gunas. So love, we describe that often as warm and soft, and anger is hot and sharp, or depression is dull, heavy, dense, hard, and gross. Often we refer to someone's attitude or personality as sharp, as hard, or as soft. We can describe our thought patterns as clear or cloudy. So these qualities are the gunas. As we can see, each element has a number of qualities that can describe it, but they also have their primary principles. So ether, which is also space, has the space primary principle. Air has the primary principle of movement. Fire has the primary principle of transformation. Water, fluidity, and earth as solid mass. So I'm not going to go in depth with the elements right now in this workshop because we'll go way over time. This subject is a whole course in itself. So if you do want to learn more in depth about Ayurveda, you can join me in my Ayurveda Alchemist program where we go right into depth with everything. But I did just want to briefly show you how the elements present themselves in your own mind and body. So if we look at ether, the space element, which is the first element created in nature, it is the space that allows for all existence of everything. It's responsible for the communication between one part of the body and another, the mind-body connection, the synaptic spaces, intracellular spaces, abdominal spaces. Self-expression is also formed from the ether quality, or ether element, sorry. And then we have the air, which evolves from ether. So ether is stillness, and then it becomes active air. It governs movement, change of direction, and creation into life. The air quality is responsible for the gases in the body, including the abdomen, the air in the lungs, all movement in the body, and the nervous system. Fire evolves from ether and air. So the movement or friction against stillness creates heat. So this is like when you rub those two stones or sticks together, you can create that friction that creates the heat and fire, like the elders did in the bush. And we know that fire governs all transformation in the body. So we're talking about our intellect and our perception, so having clear thought. think the qualities of fire, that sharp, bright, so the perception of brightness and intellect. Fire, it is also related to rajas, as we've talked about, so the rajasic quality of the mind. It's responsible for the body's colouring, our glow and our temperature, the shine in our hair or the light in our eyes, the lustre in our cheeks. It also obviously governs our metabolism and our digestion. So in Ayurveda, we talk about digestive fire as Agni, and it's responsible for the digestive enzymatic actions. Water, quality of flowing, motion or liquidity. Water gives cohesiveness to hold everything together. So if you have loose dirt and you add water, it makes it cohesive to become clay or mud, right? So it presents in all body fluids, including our blood, which we call Rakta Dhatu in Ayurveda, our plasma and our lymphatic fluid, which is Rasa Dhatu, urine, stool, saliva, our menstrual fluid, sperm, mucus. So any fluid is represented by the water element. And earth has the quality of being solid matter and stability. If you talk about an earthy person, you just know that they're that real stable, beautiful, solid natured person. So it governs form and substance, and it presents in the physical structures of the body, such as the bones, connective tissues, teeth, organs, so anything that is solid. So, right, now we have an understanding of the elements. We can now look at the doshas, because the elements make up the doshas. And the doshas are often what draws people to Ayurveda. They are a concept to explain the energies that govern the mind and the body of an individual. So our Prakriti dosha is the one that we were born with. It is our Ayurvedic fingerprint. And our Vikruti dosha is our current doshic state, or our imbalanced state. So that is the dosha that you would have done on a dosha quiz. So you would have went online, done a quiz and found out your dosha. That is your Vikruti, your current state of imbalance. We all have all three doshas within us. However, we have all a very unique proportion of those elements or those doshas. And the three doshas can change depending on our environment or the food we eat or what we're doing at that particular time. So each dosha is made up of two of the elements. Vata is made up of ether and air. It's the dosha of movement. Pitta is made up of fire and water. It's the dosha of transformation. And Kapha is made up of earth and water. It's the dosha of substance. So now we've had the insight into the 5 elements, we can determine our unique combination of these elements that influence our state of being. The elements that are creating disharmony and causing an imbalance in ourself. Ayurveda teaches us that if a dosha is increased beyond its original proportion, so our Prakriti, it can foster an environment where disease and mental challenges can develop. Your imbalanced state is called your Vikruti, as I just discussed, and that's the one you would have done on a dosha quiz. And if you haven't done a dosha quiz, there is one on my website if you would like to go and do one. So that is, something you can certainly do. So we're going to now go through the doshas. So you don't need a dosha quiz to tell you exactly what dosha you are. And as an Ayurvedic practitioner, we look a lot deeper than just the mind-body type of the dosha. So even if you do a quiz or think that you are one of these particular doshas, it's really wise to not get attached to that, because they can change, and that's why we have to change our management of our environment, the foods we're eating and what we're doing at any given time to be able to create that balance. But in saying that, the typical Vata dosha, they're either very tall and thin, or they can be very short. They usually have a bony structure. And so also that's more of the body structure of a Vata person. But remember, you can have Vata mind and mental capacity, which may not reflect the Vata body. They often have difficult gaining weight. They can have an inconsistent metabolism. They're very prone to bloating and gas and constipation and dryness because of the ether and the air element. They can get really dry skin and hair. They often like to snack on a lot of light meals throughout the day. However, this isn't great for Vata. Often we are, compelled to do the things that aren't great for us. So a Vata person, they're very creative and they love to speak. They are often yogis or dancers. They love to travel. They love to be out in the ether element. However, they can find themselves getting anxious and stressed and overwhelmed very easily because Vata governs the central nervous system. And when they are doing a lot of erratic behaviors, then they, stimulate that central nervous system. So what Vata needs is they need that more earth quality. They need that grounding. They need that nurturing. They need routine. But often Vatas don't like routine because they like to be very flippant and they like to be erratic and they just like to go with the flow, like air, the quality of air, right? They often have really cold body temperature, so the cool elements of water and of the air and the ether. They have a weak immune system out of the 3 doshas. They're really aggravated by the cold and windy weather because remember, like attracts like. So we add more of that wind element to Vata, we're going to increase that. They're often very high energy people, but they lack stamina. So they can get fatigued very easy and burn out easy after short bursts of intense energy. Like I said, social, talkative, they can be very impactful in the way that they think because they have a very abstract way of thinking. They can be very intuitive as well. So a Vata person sounds like you, Jen. Sarah in the comments there. Yep, you're definitely Vata. And they can be very emotionally sensitive. However, when they're in balance, they can suffer from a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of worry and nervousness because remember, Vata really governs that central nervous system. So when in balance, they're creative, they're intuitive, they're friendly, they're sensitive, they're energetic. When it comes to the body, when they're imbalanced within their body, they can often have IBS, the digestive issues, rapid mood swings, scattered thinking and talking. They can think and talk too quick. So some of you may have picked up, I'm quite Vata. I talk a lot with my hands, I'm always moving. And they can find that they feel really a lot of instability in their life. A lot of causes of Vata to become imbalanced is overdoing things. So Vatas are usually like, got so many ideas. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I'm going to go there. Yes, filling up my schedule. Woo, I'm like on point. They're just social. They love everything. But then they overdo everything. And like I said, they don't have a lot of stamina. So once they've overdone themselves, they burn themselves out and then they start getting into this state of anxiety and overwhelm. They've got so much to go and then they pull right back and then they get really, lonesome and worrisome in their space. So they can be really triggered by overstimulation. Like I spoke about before, we are in a world of overstimulation. So Vata is really high at the moment with a lot of people. So it's really important for a Vata person to not be eating their lunch whilst scrolling their phone, whilst having, the TV in the background. They really need to focus on one thing at a time, be really present, really be mindful of the overstimulation because this will cause a great imbalance of the Vata nervous system. And then obviously being mindful with travel, with cold, windy weather, and any big life transitions, this can be really confronting for a Vata person. So to balance Vata, they need routine. Although they don't love routine, they often lack routine, but routine is what keeps them sane and what keeps their nervous system settled as well. Warm food and environment, often cooked food, pre-cooked food, because it's better for the digestive system, and a lot of grounding practices like meditation and yin yoga. So put your hand up, all the Vatas in the house, or put in the comment if you think you're a Vata. Comment Vata. No, Jen said she's Vata. So the next one is Pitta. So remember, Pitta is the fire and water element, creates Pitta. They usually have like a medium or an average body frame, more of a muscular build. Yep, Kate, you think you're Vata? Definitely, I think you are. Pittas usually have a really strong and fast metabolism because they've got that fire, right? They can get really hangry, so hungry, angry. If they miss a meal, they need blood sugar stabilizations, and acidic foods don't go well with them. They can cause a lot of heartburn and reflux. So they should really avoid oily fried food, as this can cause stomach upset with them. They're often really warm to touch and sensitive to heat and sunlight. They have a really strong, determined mind and good willpower. So they make great leaders. They make great entrepreneurs. They have a strong immune system. They're prone to inflammatory conditions. So a lot of skin conditions like acne, heat, liver conditions, or blood conditions. Desiree said, yep, you think you are. Is this Pitta or Vata? They are very goal orientated. So if you have a Pitta person and you give them a to-do list, they just bang on. Like, I love working with Pitta people in my clinic because I give them things to do. They go and do it and they get fantastic transformations because they're the dosha of transformation, right? They love it. Judy, I think you've got your mic on, lovely. Could you just turn your mic off, please? Thank you. Desiree Pitta. Yeah, Jen, you sound a bit Pitta too. Absolutely. So remember, we do have all three. We just have different proportions. So yeah, I love working with Pittas in my clinic because they go and they get the stuff done and they get amazing transformation results. Vatas are like, yeah, I'm going to do it all. Like, they have the best intention, but then they often get really distracted. So I'm always having to pull them back in. Hey, let's get you back on track. Whereas Kapha, who we'll talk about soon, they need that motivation. They need a bit of a kick up the butt and some fire. So they, Pitta people, they usually have a really clear perception and good understanding because remember, the fire governs the mind, that clear perception of the mind. They're very passionate and very sharp mind and very witty. So when they're in balance, they can digest food well, they can digest their thoughts and emotions. They have a glowing complexions, they're productive, they're positive, they're confident, they're passionate, they're determined and clear visioned. When they're not in balance, they can be very judgmental. They can get angry and irritated because that fire elements get so elevated. They can break out with skin conditions, inflammatory conditions, acne, a lot of frustrations. They're stubborn and they're that type A type of personality. Perfectionism is their thing. And so often if I'm doing like an Ayurvedic psychology session with someone, I have to remind them that they don't need to be perfect. If we talk about journaling our inner thoughts, I say, hey, it's not an essay. No one's going to read this. Don't be perfect. So Pittas need to watch that perfectionism because they're people that will often overwork themselves and lead to great burnout. They can become very fixated on finishing tasks and putting themselves under a lot of pressure. And this is what can create an imbalance in these people. Prolonged fasting can also create an imbalance as well. And so to balance Pitta, we want regular meals, we want cooling foods, we want calming activities, non-competitive activities, because they can be very competitive. So they do make great athletes, in high functioning athletes in that way, but the rest of their life, if they're going to be a competitive athlete, they need to make sure that they're not competitive in those other areas. Mindfulness and daily exercise. So although it might sound counterintuitive, like Pitta people, they do need to move their body. They need to move that fire as well. Desiree, used to have competitiveness to keep you motivated at the gym. Yeah, so you're quite Pitta, and perfectionism. I love that you guys are already knowing what dosha you are without having to do a quiz. So Kapha is the third dosha, and that is from the earth and the water element. They usually have a larger bone structure and they can be prone to excess weight and overeating. So they're quite earthy type of people. They often have a slower metabolism. They can become bloated, but it's more that heavy feeling in the stomach, not that big, distended, gassy sort of bloating that a Vata would have. They're prone to water retention, edema and puffiness and excess mucus in the body because of the earth and the water, the stickiness element. They can appear stocky in structure and have a medium height. they do have really good stamina and endurance because they have that stability. They can just keep going. So when they're balanced, when they're healthy, they're actually amazing endurance athletes. Like they can be really good athletes. They're prone to accumulation of fluid in the body, including mucus. So they may suffer a lot of lung conditions a lot of the time. And this is also where I say, don't get too fixated on what dosha you are and, only think that you can only be that and have that dosha's conditions. If a true vata person comes into me with a lung condition, sticky mucus in the lungs, I'm treating a kapha condition because we're treating that specific condition, which is kapha. That's why we have to look at the elements. But this might be a bit advanced going into practitioner stuff. So stay on track, Harmony. They like security and comfort. So that real feeling, secure, that earth, that stability. They're very romantic, caring, and loving. They're generous. Like you always want a kapha friend. Kapha are just beautiful people. They make beautiful partners, but they also have to make sure that they have boundaries for themselves because often they can be walked over, their boundaries can be crossed and people always are crying on their shoulder but not helping them. And then this leads to resentment with kapha people. Kapha people can also become quite needy. They need that affection. And they can also become very jealous when they're not balanced as well. So, so that's sort of when they're balanced, they're good stamina, strong, loving, caring, forgiving, reliable, and they're seen as actually from an Ayurvedic perspective, the healthiest dosha because they've got that stability, that endurance. When they're not balanced, they can have an unhealthy attachment or can become possessive of things or people. They can have that more tamasic mindset and be really inertia and physically are just a bit slower and sluggish, and they can have depression and lethargy. They can become quite lazy and get that mental cloudiness as well. So the causes of this imbalanced state in a kapha person would be if they're overeating, especially heavy, thick, oily foods, cold or damp environments trigger kapha, too much inactivity, so not doing enough, not having motivation or finding passions in your life. This can all lead to excess kapha or too much just grounding activity. So balance this, kaphas need regular exercise, regular movement. They need to generate some fire, some passion. They need to stimulate their mind and their body. And they want light, warm, and dry foods. And they also want routine, so to get them motivated into a routine. But a kapha person, they often talk a lot. They talk slower. They think before they speak as well. They're often very spiritual people as spiritual presenters. So if you think of people like Eckhart Tolle or you think of Oprah Winfrey, they're very kapha. Deepak Chopra, very kapha in nature. So that is the elements. Anyone thinks that they've got a lot of kapha going on? Just remember that our vikruti can change. So in the winter, we may see more kapha. If we've got a bit of kapha in our constitution, it might start to overtake some of the pitta as we're moving out of the warmer summers. Jan, you think your hubby's kapha? Yeah. It's fun now to go around and you're like, oh, that person's kapha. Oh, there's a vata. Pitta. I like, doing that makes you learn when you can see it in real life and start to see it playing out in people and in nature. So already so much information, probably a bit of information overload, but we are going to move on to Ayurvedic Dinacharya. So this just means an Ayurvedic routine. Dinacharya is the first thing that an Ayurvedic practitioner will look at when you have a consultation with them. So they may prescribe lifestyle modifications that will help bring your dosha back into a balanced state. And Ayurvedic lifestyle is based on 3 things, and that is routine, moderation, and tuning into nature's circadian rhythm, which will in turn help to balance your doshas that we've just spoken about, your hormones, and help mitigate stress and improve your agni, so your digestive fire. Daily routine is a really important lifestyle prescription in Ayurveda because, as we have just learned, it helps to balance the elements and the doshas. So remember the elements that make up the doshas. A routine starts your day off right and brings you into a more sattvic state of mind. So remember that lightness, that purity, that holistic state of mind. Instead of just waking up, what I'm finding a lot of my clients, they wake up and they quickly get ready, then they rush to work, and then they're stopping getting takeaway on the way to work because they're so busy, or they're rushing to get their kids. They're not waking up because they don't have any routine to really settle that central nervous system, settle the stress hormones down, and provide a really good quality day for themselves. And if you look at the studies of highly successful people, whether they're successful in business or other areas of their life, if they're athletes, all of them have a dinacharya, all of them have a daily routine, and mostly it is focused on their morning routine, and that is why it's so important. Now, it doesn't have to be long and drawn out. When we first learn about Ayurveda, we think we have to do all of the things in an Ayurvedic routine. I mean, traditionally in the old times, and they did go for hours, but let's be real, we live in the modern world. It's still super important, but we don't need to draw it out. 5 minutes in the morning is even a massive improvement from no minutes. So it's a great starting point. So this is like a typical Ayurvedic Dinacharya, and I'm talking about you don't need to do all this, right? But this is like a typical one. You might just take a few of these things to do in your morning routine. And today, just commit to implementing 1 or 2 things that you have learned. So wake up when the sun rises or just before. Washing your face. So you want to wash your face, stimulate, cleanse yourself in the senses. Scrape your tongue with an Ayurvedic tongue scraper. So this helps to remove the armor, the toxins, a layer of armor that builds up in the mouth overnight. That can be from undigested food. But toxins are not just physical toxins in the body like undigested foods or trying to process substances if we've had to take any sort of medications or anything like that. We can also have mental and emotional armor, and that can present itself in our body as well. So that can, like when we get stressed, we get these tight knots in our shoulders. That's just a physical manifestation of a mental emotional armor. Nausea or oil pulling. So nausea is the application of oil up the nose and then inhaling the oil. It really clears the mind and the senses. It's so good for people who do start off having a busy day. So they just need the 5 minutes. I always recommend washing the face, doing like literally only 2 minutes of breath work and then some nausea, because it really stimulates the mind. So if you're suffering from that mental, mental clarity, not having that brain fog, then nausea is a really good one. Sipping some warm water or herbal tea, and then you want to eliminate your bowels and bladder. Self-abhyanga, which is an oil massage. So that helps to stimulate the lymphatic system, and the lymphatic system we know helps with our immunity but carries all of the toxins, and then it disposes into our digestive system to be excreted, or our urinary system to be excreted as well. So the lymphatic system, the Abhyanga self-massage is really important for that, but also to help settle the central nervous system. So it's the number 1 treatment for Vata, but it's also a good time to really tune into your body, how you're feeling, and giving that self-care and self-love to yourself. So I often tell a lot of my clients, hey, whilst you're doing Abhyanga, like either play like a Sanskrit chant or do some affirmations to yourself so you can really give yourself that body positivity when you start your day off. To be honest, I don't do a self-Abhyanga in the morning. It just doesn't fit in with my routine. So I prefer this at nighttime before my shower. So you want to wash off the oil in the shower. Taking 5 deep breaths or spending 5 minutes in meditation is such a nice way to really tone the vagus nerve. So like I've mentioned multiple times now, is that we're constantly being overstimulated and our senses are always being drawn without us. So, or from, externally. So what toning the vagus nerve does is it helps us to be able to respond better to stressful situations. It also, when we do breath work and meditation, it helps us to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. Typically these days, we're constantly in that fight and flight response. We're constantly running around doing so many things. So we're always in that sympathetic state. We really need to make time in our routine to get into that parasympathetic state. And I think if you can do 5 minutes in the morning, it's just an amazing way to start your day. So taking those 5 deep breaths or the 5 minutes is perfect. So we have someone commented 10 minutes breath work in the morning is life-changing. Yes, I 100% agree. I'm so glad that you feel that. You are coming up as iPhone, so I don't know your name, sorry, to comment to you personally. But you also say that you notice it totally off when you, so you're totally off when you don't add it to your morning. 100%. And it's so amazing what 5 minutes can do, guys. 5 minutes. Okay, see, Jen, you got another appointment. No worries. Michelle, it's Michelle. Yes, 5 minutes of breath work is perfect. You can practice some sun salutation, so any sort of yoga asana movements or any movement in the morning. Like, I really prioritize movement in the morning for me. That is part of my daily routine, and I make sure that it happens. Then obviously shower and bath and have your breakfast according to your dosha, which then leads us into Ayurvedic nutrition. So Ayurvedic nutrition, just like Dinacharya, that was very, very brief. I mean, we only have so many minutes to get this masterclass done in. These are all big, complex subjects that we go into depth in the Ayurvedic Alchemist program. So Dinacharya, that was just a brief overlook and just something to think about. Hey, what can I do in the mornings, or what can I do in my routine, whether that be, in the evenings. If you're feeling really overwhelmed and overworked at the end of the day, maybe you spend 5 minutes committing to 5 minutes every evening to put your legs at the wall, lay there with an eye pillow and a 5-minute meditation, and just see over, commit to it for 6 weeks and see how that works. It's just about learning these things that you can implement into your life and just making them very, very easy and quick and accessible for you. But yeah, it's just a brief overview. Now we're going to have a look at Ayurvedic nutrition. Again, massive topic. So we're going to have a brief overview of some things that you might want to implement into your life right now as we speak. So, yes, let's get into Ayurvedic nutrition. So Ayurveda sees food as medicine, or alternatively, it can become poison. So there is a saying that one man's medicine is one man's poison. We also say in Ayurveda that it's not what we eat, but we are what we digest. Ayurveda teaches us that the importance of nutrition and health lays not just in the food that we ingest, but how we digest. That is why Ayurvedic nutrition and having a good supportive Agni, a digestive fire, is so important. Michelle has just asked what kind of breath work that I do. I love to do in the morning box breathing. So you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, or Nadi Shodhana, which is alternate nostril breathing. And I do have those videos on my YouTube channel as well. So if you wanted to learn more about those. And there will be a recording of this available for anyone that has signed up to the masterclass. All right, so let's have a little look at the digestive system. And how food is processed and why it's so important. All food obviously goes into our mouth, and then it goes on to build the tissues in our body. So how does this happen? Food travels from the mouth to the beginning of the digestive tract, then the stomach. Amy, did you raise your hand? Did you have a question? Was it Amy? No? All right. Once it is in the stomach, the food turns into chyme, which is paste. And from here, the chyme moves into the small intestine. Some of the food nutrients get absorbed into the circulatory system and then filtered by the liver and moves to then build all the new healthy tissues of the body, because it becomes into our blood and builds all of the healthy tissues. Some of the food mass moves from the small intestine to the large intestine, the colon, and then the waste is eliminated from the body. So I was just trying to also read the comments. An imbalanced digestive fire, which is our Agni and system, will not optimally break down nutrition to nourish the tissues. Undigested waste turns into ama, which is toxins, and this can accumulate in the digestive tract, causing inflammation and increased gut permeability. Increased gut permeability leads to leaky gut, and this is where the villi in the small intestine, they're meant to be tight junctions, but they become separated, and then they can let big food particles through into the bloodstream. This is also how food sensitivities can be triggered and can cause malabsorption as well. So due to malabsorption of proper nutrients, the body tissues cannot be nourished properly, and this can lead to disease and an imbalance in the body. Ayurvedic practitioners and doctors place great emphasis on the digestive system and the digestive fire and metabolism and how it can impact the balance right throughout our body. A lot of Ayurvedic treatments aim to cleanse and or treat the digestive system, preventing the buildup of ama. So this is another reason why Ayurveda really advocates for a good, healthy routine, Dinacharya, and treating food as medicine. So improper digestion leads to ama toxins, and the body can react to the ama and cause inflammatory responses and allergic responses. And ama also breeds an environment for bad bacteria, throwing off the balance of the gut microbiome and creating an environment where disease can manifest. That is why gut health is super important in Ayurveda. So one of the main goals of Ayurvedic nutrition is to support Agni. The term Agni is used to explain the digestive fire, similar to what we call our metabolism, but not entirely, because we have Agni of all of the cells. Our Agni determines how well you digest your food, create healthy bodily tissues, and produce ojas, which is your immunity and your vitality. So to support Agni, we can eat at the same time each day. The regularity of meals assists your body's clock in recognizing when it needs to increase digestive enzymes and metabolic function in order to break down the anticipated meal so that you can digest your food properly. So if you're someone who gets bloated very easily and you're very vata and you're eating at those erratic times, you might want to take away from this masterclass to start to have regular meal times. Our body is so intelligent that when we have these regular meal times, it will automatically start producing the digestive enzymes we need to break down those meals. You also want to eat a light and easily digestible diet full of fresh whole foods. So if you are very vata and you're eating lots of cold raw salads, they're a lot harder to digest. So you might need to opt for some cooked whole vegetables for a while as well. Drinking warm water, not ice cold water, because remember, if we're thinking about the elements, cold, it burns the fire out, or not burns, it puts the fire out, right? We need that fire to keep that metabolism going and to digest the foods. So you don't want to drink cold water or a lot of water directly before or after a meal, because it also dilutes our digestive enzymes. So to keep your Agni strong, you only want to sip warm water or herbal teas with your meals. And then you want regular exercise to stimulate that metabolic rate as well. Ayurveda recommends a sattvic diet made up of pure foods that promote health, vitality, and clarity. So mindful eating is a really important aspect. Like I said, you want to sit down, not be stimulated by everything else. You want to get into that rest and digest. You want to stimulate that parasympathetic state so that we can digest the food properly. I noticed a massive difference when I literally made an effort to have my lunch and that is it. Focus wholly on my food, not on my phone, not with a podcast going or anything else, just focus on my food. And a sattvic diet is also an easy to digest diet as well. So what are sattvic foods? They are whole grains, so rice, wheat, oats, and quinoa, not as least processed as possible. So ideally sattvic foods are not processed, right? They're fresh foods and vegetables. They can include nuts, legumes, and seeds, organic fresh dairy, and that is because our dairy now is full of hormones. It often comes also from cruelty to the animal, which is not sattvic in nature. Therefore, it would not be seen as a sattvic food. But back in the Ayurvedic times, you know, the animal that they got it from was completely all organic and done in like a loving way, because they believed in this sattvic food and blessing the animal when they were getting milk and all of those type of things. Also spices, but ones that are not too stimulating. A lot of spices, Ayurvedic spices, have very medicinal benefits. And then natural sweeteners, so jaggery, honey, and agave syrup. Rajasic foods, so these are generally foods that are heating or stimulating and can increase negative emotions or that sympathetic state where you're just constantly rushing, that anxiety or that stress state. So these would be foods that are excessively sour, salty, hot, and bitter. So anything that overstimulates the senses, or pungent or dry, they can also overstimulate the senses and take away clarity and focus. So remember, anything that's going to completely take you out of your natural state is going to take you away from your true clarity and focus and leave you unsettled or have a rushing mind. Rajasic food should always be eaten in moderation. And then we have tamasic foods. And these obviously can induce more of a tamasic state. We learn about that at the start of the masterclass, which is that inertia, that foggy feeling, making you feel dull or even a little bit in a depressed state as well. So foods that are moldy, toxic in nature, including alcohol and drugs, or have been pumped with hormones, such as a lot of our meat and poultry. So you always want to make sure that if you are eating meat, you're getting hormone-free meat. If you eat any food in excess, it can also become tamasic, because overindulging in the senses is not living in the right way. So by overeating, you can cause harm to your internal and external being. So you always want to eat tamasic foods very sparingly, if ever. And the reason that canned foods are also seen as tamasic is they have no prana in it. Prana is that life force energy. So when in Ayurvedic nutrition, we're always looking to find prana in our food. And I think that might be the next slide. It is. So an Ayurvedic saying is anam pranam, which means food is prana. Food is life. Prana means life. Breath work is actually called pranayama, which means life control, right? So food goes on to build all of the tissues in our body. So we want to make sure that we're having the right foods rich in prana. The foods that we eat have a direct effect on our current state of mind. And by eating a diet with natural living ingredients, we are getting a diet not only rich in nutrition, but also prana. Prana is life force energy that is crucial to our state of mind and overall health. So if we're going back to, looking at canned food versus fresh food, if you have fresh fruit, for instance, and you grab the seeds of that fruit, you plant it in the earth, it sprouts new life because it has prana. But if you have that fruit in a can and you go plant that, nothing sprouts because the prana has been taken out of that fruit. So I hope that all makes sense. That was a very, very basic overview of Ayurvedic nutrition. But if you could take away something, it would be to look for prana in your food and regulate your meal times. So whether it's Ayurvedic Dinacharya lifestyle, doing 5 minutes of meditation at the end, or breath work in the morning, or just setting up a routine, or eating in a wholesome way, having regular meals, looking for prana in your food, I would love for you to write in the comments, what is something you're going to commit to? What Ayurvedic Dinacharya lifestyle or nutrition thing will you commit to for 6 weeks in your life at least? Because once you've done it for 6 weeks, motivation turns into habit and it just will become part of you, but you'll see great benefits from. So I'd love for you to pop it in the comments what you are going to do. How are you going to improve your life with Ayurveda? So just remember that Ayurveda will meet you where you're at so that you can progress through your own journey of health, wellness, and longevity. Remember, it is not a race. This is a lifestyle. It's things that we can implement slowly. We don't have to implement everything all at once and become even more overwhelmed with things. It is a journey and it is definitely not a race. So just take it at your own pace, because Ayurveda will always meet you with where you're at. And so we've got Judy is going to practice mindful eating. Yes, Judy, love that. Definitely something that has helped me personally in my own life. Amy is going to look at doing a morning routine. Morning routines, as I said, they set you up for success for the day. Morning breath work, Desiree, perfect. Yep, morning breath work. Again, we've talked about the benefits of that. And we do go into pranayama breath work in my Ayurveda Alchemist program. I also have a breathwork specialist coming in to talk to us just about breath work. And we've got Evelyn also doing pranayama in the morning. And regular meals and warmer foods for Kate, perfect. Mindful eating again, and wanting to do it for a while, but you keep distracting yourself. Well, this is your wake-up call. This is, you've been called to do this, so make sure that you implement the things, because change only happens with change, guys. If you can learn all the theory, you can read all the personal development books in the world, but if you're not going to implement the stuff, you're not going to change, you're not going to transform, you know. So making sure that you implement. And so before you go, I did want to say that if you have felt drawn to this wisdom, it is because you have been called by the great teachers who have come before us. Ayurveda has so much to offer this modern world, and I'd love to introduce you to my Ayurveda Alchemist program, which just kicks off in a few weeks. And I would love to invite you to be part of this holistic health revolution and help transform not only your own life but others too. So I am going to give you guys a really special offer today. So if you are interested in the Ayurvedic Alchemist program, you can always jump on a call with me, but if you're ready to sign up, then I want to give you $100 off of your tuition, and you just need to use the word or the code VEDA, which is VEDA, and Noreen has put the code in the comments there, VEDA, for $100 off. The program goes for 6 months, and we do have 7 guest expert teachers joining us to help you on your Ayurveda business journey, which I'll share with you in the coming slide. But I always say that this program really is a 3-in-1 program. You get a certification, so you become a certified Ayurveda lifestyle and wellness coach so that you can share this wisdom with the world. It's also a radical personal development journey. So I always, get my students to really embody the practice, and I teach you how to do that so you can go on this epic personal journey. And then it's a business course. We have business modules to set you up for success so that you can create a business out of this if you want to. So some of my students that did it last year with me, these are some of their testimonials that they said they completed it and they thought that the course being online, that they would just jump on calls and jump off and be doing it all alone, but that was so wrong. What they found was this amazing, beautiful community, and that's what I love so much about the program. It's the friendships that you create as well, and that personal growth. But these are also some more bonuses that we are offering you guys. So not only the $100 off your tuition, which is only valid for 48 hours, guys. So if you are interested, you've got 48 hours to get that $100 off. You'll also get $250 worth of vouchers in business coaching, a stunning Ayurvedic journal. I love it. It's got the Ayurvedic Alchemist journal written on that. That's a physical one that will be sent to you. You'll get a time management calendar to help you manage your time and your studies. Now, I know time can be a thing. We're really busy. We don't want to be overwhelmed, but it is only committing to a couple of hours, if that, a week, because the lectures aren't on every week. I am also studying a master's in applied science and acupuncture. I have twins. I work. I run a business. I've got all the things going on. I understand about time, but that's why routine is also so important. You also will get a wellness hub with lots of yoga, Pilates, breathwork, and meditation classes online to help you throughout the year with your studies and practice, and lots of Ayurvedic recipe ebooks that you can use to implement Ayurvedic cooking in your own life, but also share, some of the recipes with your clients when you create a business out of this, if that's what you wish. As I mentioned, we have 7 guest expert facilitators to help accelerate your potential as a successful Ayurveda lifestyle and wellness coach. So we have Holly. She is a messaging coach who will help you refine your message so that you can clearly articulate what you do and who you serve as a coach. We have Danny Smith, who is a certified Wim Hof instructor. She's a performance breath coach and personal trainer. She is going to be teaching us on the magic of breath work, We have Laura Humphreys. She's an amazing yoga teacher trainer who will be teaching Vedic philosophy. We have Dr. Priya, who will be teaching us on organic social media and the art of the sale call, as well as the psychology of sales, which is really important when going into business. We have Alison Eve. She is an Ayurveda health coach. She lives in Mexico, and she'll be teaching us on how to build an international Ayurvedic business. We also have Anna. She's a men's mindset and bodywork coach. She helps men get connected to what really matters most in their lives. And she's going to be taking the module on Ayurveda for men's health. Anna also did the Ayurveda Alchemist program last year, and since doing it, because she has been able to really niche down into Ayurveda for men's mindset, she has just skyrocketed. Like, she's in magazine publications, she's everywhere. She's done amazing. Melissa Alves, she was also another student last year, and she had done life coaching, but now with this Ayurvedic element, she has become so much more clear in her niche, and she's doing evolution and purpose coaching, guiding aspiring mompreneurs to evolve to the next level. So she's going to be talking to us about how you can tap into that inner coach as well. So yes, a lot of fantastic facilitators. You will be learning from the best on how to become a successful Ayurveda lifestyle wellness coach, to create your own target niche and run a successful coaching business. So I would really love for you to join us in on the program. And remember, you can go sign up today. Noreen has put in the link in the comments there. So if you click on the link in the comments, you will be taken to the Ayurveda Alchemist page. It has all of the information. It has testimonials from some of last year's women who went through it. It also has all of the modules laid out there, so you can see the 12 modules we go through. You click on that, you'll be taken to where you can pay and sign up and enroll, and that's where you'll put the code VEDA, VEDA, for $100 off your tuition. I also do offer payment plans. You still get that same $100 off the payment plan if that's what you want to go for. However, if you do opt for the pay in full option, you do get a discount, so it is slightly discounted from the payment plan, but you also get a one-to-one session with me as a bonus as well. So that's an amazing offer. So you save there, you get that one-to-one session with me to use throughout your journey. So it can be either health coaching or to help business coaching. So that's all I'll say about that. If you did have any other questions, you can always reach out to me. But I would like to thank you for taking this journey with me. So if you did find it interesting and would like to dive deeper into Ayurveda, please keep in touch in the Ayurvedic Soul Sister Tribe Facebook group. I'm always in there. I jump in there live. I do put up Monday meditations. We have lots of information about Ayurveda in there. And then you can also follow me on Instagram. Harmony Inspired Ayurveda is more my personal account, where I'm mostly active on. And then Harmony Inspired Health is the clinic's account. And that Harmony Inspired Health should have dashes, not dots there. But yes, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I have absolutely loved having you and sharing this amazing wisdom with you. Please go and implement some of the things. And I really hope to see you in the Ayurveda Alchemist program, as I'd love to continue this journey with you. So namaste, everybody. Righty, I'm just going to stop the record.